The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Secrets to Sophisticated Segmentation. I am Jonathan Smith, Vice President of Client Success here at Ascend 360. Very grateful you took time out of your busy schedules to join us. Before we jump in, just a few housekeeping items to mention. First of all, as you just heard the announcement, all attendee lines will be muted. That said, we would love to make this a participatory event, so please use the chat, send us questions. If time allows, at the end, we'll be answering those. Or if we don't have enough time during the webinar, we will follow up individually one-on-one. And so we would love to hear your questions, as well as any ideas you have for future webinar topics that you'd like for us to cover. So thanks for joining us and collaborating with us. We will also share out a link to the recording in the next business day. And then finally, keep an eye out for 2 poll questions because there is an incentive. So if you participate in the 2 polls during the live session, there is a $50 Amazon gift card available for 2 attendees. So with that, I'd like to introduce my counterpart, Stephanie Smith. She's our Director of Product here at Ascend 360. Thrilled to have her because she's going to lead us through some use cases and show us real-life examples of how we bring segmentation to life to really empower smarter, results-driven marketing, really. So with that, before I hand it to Stephanie, just to give you a quick overview, we actually looked at the attendee list, have a lot of new folks and faces. So thanks for joining us. Just background, I would sum up Ascend 360 as we really focus on helping clients unlock their data and to use that for driving the business. And so from taking all their data, which may be in different silos and disparate point of sale systems, bringing that together, cleansing it, making it easy to segment, which we'll talk a lot about today on, and then to move that forward into many different marketing channels. And so that's really what we do day in and day out. It's why we wanted to have this webinar and future webinars to give you all some tools for your arsenal as marketers. So with that, I'd like to actually start with a poll where, again, first poll of the session, be sure to participate. We'll give you about 30 seconds to. We'd love to know, just as a starting point, where folks sit in terms of the use of segmentation. So we'll give you just a moment to do that. All right. And it's really quite interesting. I mean, there's a lot of mixed answers in terms of what we see. Some folks are absolutely using segmentation. We do see a lot of I wishes, which is also fun too. And it's a great place to start. Really with segmentation, it's a journey and it's really meant to be building blocks, which Stephanie's going to show you today. So with that, I would love to turn it over to Stephanie to get us started.
Hey everyone, it's great to be with you. Thanks for the intro, Jonathan. As Jonathan already mentioned, we really focus on aggregating your data into a single location so that we can empower you as a client to use it. To set the stage, I just have a slide here introducing what segmentation looks like. So we're taking it from a single customer point of view. And what you see here is all of the different data points that we have on this single customer. And when we think about segmentation, it really falls into 4 basic categories: demographic, geographic, behavioral, and psychographic. And you can see here that the way we aggregate our data, you have all of those different types of data collected on a single customer that you can use as a golden record. You can use these different types of data to segment on their own, or you can start combining these different types of data to make really complex and sophisticated strategies.
Great. It's probably a secret, I would say, to segmentation is that it is the journey. It's a building block. So you mentioned 4 different types. Why don't we start with demographic segmentations and maybe a use case of, we work with a lot of bike retailers, for instance. And what we know is there's often, especially this time of year, for those of us who love biking, summer unfortunately is subsiding and we're moving into winter. And there may be some inventory that folks have left over and want to move it, and let's say it's maybe men's inventory, how would you guide a client to do maybe gender-based segmentation to move some of that product?
Yep, so just to give a lay of the land before I show you how you'd actually create that segment, here in the middle of your screen, you see our canvas. This is an easy drag and drop canvas where you can select fields from the field library that you see on the left in purple. You drag them right over onto the canvas, you configure them, and that's how you start building your audiences. So now I will show you how you'd build a simple demographic audience based on gender. You just open this demographics tab where you'll find gender. You drag that onto the canvas. You click the configure icon. You set your criteria to equals and select male. You bring that over, you save it. It's as easy as that, and then you run your counts. And you'll see on the right, we have a contactability panel. I'm running email counts here today, and we are primarily focusing on the email channel for the purposes of today's webinar, but do know that any of this segmentation that we talk about can be used in any of your marketing channels. So as you can see here, we have 93,767 emailable male contacts that we can communicate with in this segment.
That's great, and obviously pretty easy to execute that, right? One attribute, bring that in, and you found almost 94,000 people. Probably another common situation that we like to see is that's behavior-based. We have a lot of commerce folks on the line, and perhaps they're looking at contacting the folks who are really quite interested in their brand, as evidenced by a recent purchase. You know, we certainly know as marketers, when someone's opened their wallet, that's an important sign of opportunity, not just for the sale you just made, but also the follow-up. And so why don't you show us how you could move into more of a recent purchase segmentation?
Yeah, this is a very common one, especially using purchase behavior. In this example, we'll use recent purchase, meaning yesterday. And I think Jonathan will talk about some more specific examples. But, you know, I think yesterday's purchasers, whether you're thanking them or welcoming them, is a great place to start. So very similar to how we created the gender-based, except we start with purchase details. We select transaction date. This is a calculated field, so it will be running on a daily basis and always looking one day ahead. As you can see, by one day before today's date, you save that. And then again, we're running email counts here, and you see there's 196 contactable customers that purchased yesterday.
I would actually tell you, working with clients a lot, this is maybe an intuitive, but also sort of a secret segmentation. That calculation is actually quite powerful, because then you can trigger an email like this, and you do it whether it's in your sleep or while you're in meetings. To set up an automated cadence is actually quite powerful. And so just a very simple example of the type of thank you campaigns that you can build for even email or many other channels, just based on the simple knowledge of people who've purchased and doing that on a daily basis. And so a good example of how segmentation does become that building block. And let's say, Stephanie, as we're monitoring our clientele and getting more insights on them, and we want to really further segment and drive more what we call personalization, meaning the content of our marketing is more germane to the audience that we're sending it to. Why don't we look at perhaps honing it by product? We're using this example of bike retailers. Let's keep with that and look at perhaps the type of product someone purchased. How do you leverage that in segmentation to therefore empower you to be more precise in your content?
Absolutely. So we will continue to build on the examples that we've already shown. So we'll start from the beginning again on this one. And what you'll see is, again, we're going to go to purchase details. We're going to do the same thing we did with the calculated field for the day before. We'll save that, but now we're going to add additional criteria. And this is going to be specific to the type of product that a customer has purchased. In this example, we're going to look at mountain bikes. We're going to select everything related to a mountain bike here, multi-select easily bring it over into our selected values and save it. And to note, these product categories, classes, subclasses, etc., are all tailored to the specific data that we are bringing in from your systems. So while you're seeing it in one version here, this is actually will be tailored to any specific client's data. So now what you have is a segment of customers that purchased yesterday and they purchased a mountain bike. So Jonathan, how would this come to life in marketing?
Yeah, we actually dropped an example here, and pretty straightforward, right? So on the left, if we had chosen in the example Stephanie just showed, kids bikes, sending an email that, as simple as having a header image with children in it, versus to the right, the more mountain bike centric content. While this may seem pretty elementary to some folks, it actually is quite powerful. I was actually talking to a ski client the other day, and they did some recent brand research and said, we learned when we're sending marketing to family, sending photos of very steep drops or very heavy powder is actually really demotivating. And so for them, a very easy segmentation learning was, gosh, we are actually sending tons of these photos, the very classic deep powder shots, whereas maybe we need to be sending the smiling, warm face on a beginner run. And so I think that's a great example beyond just bike of how you take the data you have of the products folks are purchasing and their behavior and leverage that to really accelerate the sophistication and personalization of your communications with them. And so that's, a big example of a thank you. In a similar light, we also know, again, folks have their wallet open, they've got a relationship with this, and upsell is a big deal to grow that share of wallet. Why don't you show us, Stephanie, how we might take knowledge of someone's purchases and then therefore work to bring them up to speed on other offerings, which could be complementary?
Yeah, so in this example, what we'll do is we'll use some of the same fields that we have already, just to sort of see how these are building blocks to basic and more complex segmentation. We will use, again, the transaction date field and a department name this time. So first, we will go ahead and choose the department name of bicycles. And this, more general than the mountain bikes that we selected previously. So now we have anyone who purchased bicycles, no time parameter. Now we're going to add the time parameter. Again, we're going to use a calculated field, but this time we're going to do between. So we're going to choose 3 months before today's date through today. And we're going to save that. So now we have anyone who has purchased a bike in the last 3 months. This is giving us an audience that, like Jonathan was mentioning, may be ripe for upsell. They're recent purchasers. They made a big purchase, but maybe are looking for additional items to complement their purchase.
That's great. And as you mentioned, the data you're building this off of is unique to you. We've got bikes here, but this could be that you bought jewelry or you bought a season pass. So many different use cases here, which then allows you to deliver marketing that speaks to that product and then therefore offers the upsell as you see here, where, offering the ability to view more gear and things that you may have picked out for the customers in these segments to grow that share of wallet. That's great. And I'm actually thinking about how you want to grow share of wallet, but you also really want to enjoy the brand loyalty and affinity that comes with a relationship with a customer. I'm actually quite curious, what if you say, gosh, I've got a loyal base of customers, but I really want to focus on maybe people who are nearby. And if it's the bike example, let's invite them to go out and ride with a pro. So, how would we look at, or actually, why don't we start with demo bikes? Because demos, maybe they're local, it's time to remind them to get a bike and they've been maybe a year or so out. How would you geo-target and narrow down to more of a regional location?
Yeah, that is a great way to start building additional complexity into your segmentation. So using your example, we'll go ahead and show you how you can quickly build this segment. So we're going to start with that same department that we had before, and we're going to use bikes again. Add transaction date, and this time we're going to go for a bit longer window, since what Jonathan mentioned is that we are promoting a demo event. You probably don't want folks who have just purchased a bike. They may not be ready for a new bike, but it's been a year or more than a year, so we want to target those customers. Now, in order to really take advantage of a demo, they have to be relatively close to the demo event location. So in this example, we're using a field called radius by zip, where you can quickly and easily go through and hone in on that geographic region. So in this case, we did a specific zip code within the Chicago area, and then selected a 40-mile radius from that zip code. Now we have a really honed in audience of people who are probably primed to start thinking about a new bike, whether it's upgrading their existing bike, adding another bike to the fleet. Those of us that are cyclists know that there is always room for another bike in the garage, and then are close by so that they can easily drive to the demo event and participate.
And putting that into action. Again, nothing that's overly difficult, but you've got this well-defined audience behind the marketing delivery. So whether you're sending it as an email or maybe a targeted social ad, to do that invitation for the demo bikes, to again set up that loyalty, that relationship, which leads to greater purchase rates and brand affinity. Super important, and something we really focus on with our clients is how do we leverage segmentation and the data they have about their customers to really build that long-term loyalty. And that's probably a great example. I mentioned loyalty, but even for a monetary or kind of a scoring approach, we know that's a big benefit to marketers, is to know how to carve out really high value segments and speak to them in a special way. I mentioned earlier this idea of maybe you invite someone to go for a ride with a pro, and maybe you want to target at the folks who are your high value, high spend customers if you're a bike retailer. How would you bring that data to life in a way you can segment it and get to a high value customer?
So I'd love to start with just explaining some of the additional fields that are automatically included as you load your data into our system. One of it, which is RFM score, or recency, frequency, and monetary scores. These are essentially a 5-point scale that's used to break up your customers into even groups based on how recently they've purchased, how frequently they purchase, and how much they spend when they make a purchase. This 5-point scale, 1 being your least valuable guests, 5 being your most valuable customers. So you can use recency, frequency, and monetary separately, or you can use them together. Additionally, we also have a calculated field around lifetime spend. So what you'll see is in this field library, we have these customer aggregates, and you'll see recency, frequency, and monetary separately, and then you'll see the RFM scores combined. Now, you'll be able to scroll down. These are all a whole list of calculated fields that we do, but we also have total spent in a lifetime. These are 2 different ways to get at exactly your high value or VIP customers. For this example, since maybe you aren't sure exactly what that dollar amount that would be considered high value or VIP, so you don't want to use total spent in lifetime, you just want to know the highest spenders. So for this example, we'll actually use RFM, and you'll just go ahead, open those customer aggregates again. You'll drag over monetary since we're focusing on spend. And we're going to select monetary score of 4 and 5. And these are your highest spending customers. So now, in conjunction with the type of product someone has purchased, when they have purchased, where they're located, now you have your highest spenders as well. So for Jonathan's example, this is a great way to hone in on a very VIP audience for a specific event. And Jonathan can probably talk a little bit more how this comes into action.
Yeah, we've really talked about how we've used email as an example, but a high value customer, that's probably a place where you're willing to actually do more investment. And direct mail, it's a channel for marketers that really has to be quite targeted most of the time, because with limited budgets, it's not a very cheap channel. But for a high value customer with a very poignant offer or a relationship effort, it's really a very strong tool that we partner on with our clients. Or if you have a call center for some of the larger retail clients we work with, they may do more one-to-one communication via their call center reps. So many different ways that you could bring this to life. And important to know that Ascent can help you do that across a litany of channels. So that was a great example. And as you saw, we really started from going all the way back to demographic and just gender-based segmentation, all the way up to how close you are to the organization, what your spend and scores are, and how do you take that to life with really marketing across many channels. So hopefully that proves to you segmentation doesn't have to be daunting. It's definitely meant to be a building block. And we often say to our clients, crawl, walk, and run. Start with fundamentals and then build upon that as you see success. And that'll be something that really tees up future webinars for us, where we'll talk with you about, well, how do I set these up in an automated way? How do I measure them and ensure that they're being successful? So with that, I want to thank Stephanie for doing real-time demos, which is always fun, and showing some use cases. And what I'd like to do is, again, go to the question. So as a reminder, if you have not sent a question in yet, we do have several. Please go ahead and shoot that our way. I'm going to pull those up. But speaking of segmentation and growing sophistication, Stephanie's team has been working hard on a new enhancement. We're actually, you'll hear it here first, we're releasing it next week. So why don't you actually go through that, Stephanie?
Thanks, Jonathan. So as Jonathan said, coming soon, in the next few weeks, what you'll actually see is on that canvas that I was demoing earlier, you'll actually see the ability to create advanced queries. So this gives you the power to actually implement your own grouping logic to truly create even more customized segments and add even more complexity to your segments. Again, don't be overwhelmed by this. This is something you can toggle on and off, so you can really follow that crawl, walk, run approach with your segmentation. This will help you when you get to that sophisticated segmentation, though.
Fantastic. Okay, first question we got from the audience, which is, will radius or geographic segmentation work in areas beyond the US? Do you want to take that one?
Right now, our radius by zip is for US, but we can use state, province, country, other pieces of geographic data to segment for geography.
Awesome. Another question we got, what is the difference between dynamic and static segments? It's something I heard about recently, and I'm not sure what that means. I'll hand that one off to you. Static versus dynamic.
Yeah, so we actually saw probably a couple of those here. So an example of static would be, and I'll stray a little from our bike examples, and I'll use a resort example on this. Anytime you are sending out a communication to your customers, if you are, for example, a ski resort, you may always segment by pass holder and non-pass holder. There's not a lot of migration between those two groups once the season has started, once you've stopped selling passes. So that'd be a static segmentation. An example of a dynamic segmentation would be what we showed in the examples of using dates or date ranges. And bringing this to life for a resort example, it'd be something like a pre-arrival communication. So, a audience of people that are arriving in 7 days. Every single day you run that is going to be a different group of people. It is a segment, but those people within the segment change every day.
Fantastic. Another one I see here, which is actually really good. We haven't talked about this. It says, I understand segmentation, it's a building block, but how often do I change segmentation? And I'll tell you, it varies by client, but our focus is really, when do you have the insights that tell you what's working and what's not? Because again, with segmentation, it's a building blocks, but I should actually say, it's meant to be a journey of, you may remove some blocks. You may say, gosh, I did this segmentation, and we gave an example of maybe you do family segmentation for the bikes versus mountain bikes versus road bikes. But let's say it turns out from an engagement score or conversions, you're just not seeing very good success with that family segment. You might take one or two paths. You might say, maybe I need to get further granular with that segment, or vice versa, say, you know, perhaps it's less about family and it is maybe more the distinction of road versus mountain bike. So our advice is look for the data and allow it to inform those decisions, and do view it as a continually optimization cycle for your segmentation. Next question we got, what's the best way to collect customer data in a non-invasive way? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I would say from my experience, and Jonathan may be able to shine some light on this as well, e-commerce is, as we've all seen, on the rise massively through the last couple years, less in-person transactions. So e-commerce, people are very used to providing their data. The next thing is, customers more and more are expecting you to know them, and they are expecting personalized communication. And for that reason, they are less hesitant to provide you with that information that is going to allow you to personalize and target communications. But setting up the right processes on site to capture that in a conversational way is definitely also key. Making sure your frontline employees are empowered with a script to ask in a really friendly and conversational way, not ask for too much information at a time, because we also know there's operational constraints to that.
Fantastic. Thanks for the intel there. And as we wrap up, before we conclude, have a final poll question. We are going to activate it for 20 to 30 seconds. We'd love for you to inform us. If you have any interest, we'd love to give you a complimentary data driven marketing assessment for folks who are not currently a client of Ascend 360. So drop it in the poll if that's something that interests you. We'd love to reach out. As we wrap up, just a reminder, we are certainly helping folks unlock their data. And we get that data from a lot of places. We are excited to have a lot of integrations. We have some one-click integrations, which are really straightforward and bring your data in quite quickly and get you up to speed with BigCommerce, Lightspeed, Shopify. But even beyond those e-commerce systems, we have more than 100 point-of-sale systems. So if you've got a business case with data, we'd love to help you try to solve it. So like I said, reach out if you'd like to schedule a demo, have some questions. I do know we have some questions from the audience we didn't get to. We'll be happy to follow up with you all one-on-one with those. And for anyone joining us here, we are recording the webinar, but if you're joining live and you register for a demo, we'd love to give you a $50 Amazon gift card if you join us before the end of the month. Great way to get some holiday shopping out of the way with a gift card. So thank you so much. Again, we will make this a series of webinars. We aim to join you again in February. And with that, we will wrap it up. Have a great day.
Thank you.